So, what is your name and your position?
Okay, my name is Dr Osbourne. I'm a professor here at Texas State. I created the undergraduate minor in sports psychology back, I think, in 2004.
Okay, great. So how long did it take you to get to this position, and what kind of educational route did you go through to get here?
First of all, I'm not a sports psychologist.
Okay.
I'm a social psychologist. I got my PhD in social psychology from the University of Texas in Austin. Social psychology is sort of an overarching kind of area in psychology that looks at how people influence each other. And so there are lots of elements of that. For example, years and years and years ago, industrial organizational psychology didn't exist. It sort of developed through and branched off from social psychology. And now forensic psychology and sports psychology have kind of done the same thing. And so when I came to Texas State in 2001 and looked at the psychology curriculum, I didn't see any of that applied stuff. There was very little application part to the program, which is pretty normal for that time period. And so I started looking around, noticed that we had a pretty strong exercise science department, noticed that we had a pretty strong criminal justice department, and it got me thinking about creating those applied aspects of psychology in forensic psychology and sports psychology. So that's kind of where that came from.
Mm-hmm. Now, what is your favorite part about the job? On a daily basis?
Since I'm on the teaching side of it, of course, my favorite part of it is teaching. But I have done consulting work with some university sports teams and stuff like that, and I think my favorite part of it is, just being able to work with both the coaches and the athletes to improve performance when we realize that either the athlete's at their peak physically, but not at their peak in terms of performance because of some psychological issue or some adjustment that needs to be made, or something like that. So I like the idea of thinking about how can an understanding of psychology help someone to perform better. I'm not a team physician, I'm not a skills coach, I'm not a trainer, so I can't help the person to peak their performance physically, but I can help someone to peak their performance mentally.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this. Is this something you always wanted to do, or you just kind of fall into it?
I kind of fell into it.
Okay.
And if you ask a lot of people that do sports psychology, they'll tell you kind of the same thing, that they sort of fell into it. And again, I fell into it mainly because I realized that we had an area that lots of students would be interested in that we weren't covering within our curriculum. And so that kind of caused me to branch out to that. Years before that, I had branched out into forensic psychology for the same reason, where I was teaching at Indiana University. Those applied areas in psychology are where most of the students are going to get their jobs. And so I thought, well, if we can ramp that up and especially collaborate with other departments like exercise science and criminal justice, then the students get kind of a foot in both worlds. Right. And so that's kind of how it's, again, just sort of started by asking myself what's missing in the curriculum that seems to be hot future directions in our discipline that would be a benefit to students.
Okay. And lastly, what advice can you give someone who wants to get into psychology?
And sports psychology in particular? Or?
Yes, in particular.
Okay. Sports psychology is, it's a fascinating area in psychology, but it's one where there are not a lot of real direct career paths. And so, you're not going to be able to get a sports psychology job with an undergraduate degree in psychology. You can't get a psychology job with an undergraduate degree in psychology anyway. Right. It takes specialized and advanced training. The problem is there are so few graduate programs in sports psychology that all the people that are interested in doing that are all applying for the same spots. Right. And so it's ultra competitive. And so what I've tried to do with the undergraduate minor in sports psychology and with the contributions that I make to our master's degree in psychological research here in our department is to provide an avenue for students to build their credential the best they can as an undergraduate by having that undergraduate minor. And then if they wanted to pursue a master's degree in psychological research or something like that, and then I'm also helping them to explore certification through, there's a International Association for Applied Sports Psychology has a certification called Certified Sport Consultant. And those two together would maybe allow them to then begin to practice in the area of sports psychology.
Okay, great. Thank you.